Welcome, Gabi, to my YouTube channel. We have been chatting on and off, and I'm so excited to finally get Gabi on this channel. So I know, Gabi, you are from the UK, but you are currently in Poland at a retreat, but I have not heard your story yet, so I'm super eager to hear it. So without further ado, Gabi, how did the Jehovah's Witnesses come into your world, and how is your life like as a Jehovah's Witness?
So the Jehovah's Witnesses came into my life when my mom started to study with them. I was very young. My mom got baptized when I was 8 years old, about 8 years old. So I was very young. And my grandma was studying at the same time, and my uncle and my stepdad, they were all studying at the same time. And they actually got baptized at the same convention, sorry. So so that was it, suddenly all Christmases and everything just stopped. I remember a couple of Christmases and celebrations, from very young age, and then that suddenly stopped. Um, we we moved a lot. We moved constantly. So when I was in what you would call primary school years, the educational system is slightly different in Poland in terms of, the age where you start your education to what it is in UK. But I would say the equivalent is the primary school education. I went to 4 different schools in the space of 7 years. So that was a lot, changing school and um, getting to know all these people, trying to assimilate and trying to get accepted in the new environment is hard enough. And then all this JW stuff comes into play as well, where you have to, when you're this weirdo and you don't celebrate any Christmases, birthdays, any other celebrations, you have to go outside when people draw things to do with Easter or Christmas or anything like that. So that was really hard for me. And there was a lot of bullying, of course. And yeah, it was just very, very hard. And it affected me enormously, then growing up. Growing up as a GW, as I said, we just moved constantly. When I was trying to kind of go through my history a little bit in my head in preparation for this, I think I've counted 25 different accommodations and houses we lived in. So it was very, very hectic. It was very hectic upbringing.
If I can interrupt you, and I can ask, what made your family move so many times?
I think it was just, I really don't know how to describe this. It was just probably, I really don't know how to describe why we moved so many times. I don't think my parents were very mature in the same sense of, building that stable house. So wherever we didn't have our own place, maybe that was the reason. So we never had our own house. And so we would rent constantly and therefore move constantly wherever, if the rental contract finished in one place, we would go somewhere else. And I don't think there was ever much consideration for me and the fact that, every time we move, I have to change school. I haven't really thought about why. I think it's just lack of our own place to live, our own accommodation, our own house, and just yeah, just lack of um, yeah, I would say maybe that maturity of kind of creating stable place to be. Um, yeah, I think I don't know how to answer this question, to be honest. We
No,
just moved
no,
on.
that I was just curious. So in this process of
Mm,
constantly moving, I assume that you were always going to different congregations as well. And as a young kid, I can imagine that was also difficult. So you were changing schools and changing congregations at the same time. What was that like for you?
yes, but that was actually a positive, I would say, in a way. And I think, uh, having a congregation of affinity, we would move times, but we mainly move houses. So we would sometimes stay in the same city, but we would live in different houses. So I didn't have to change the congregation quite as much as I had to change schools. But in a way, that was a positive to have that community of people who were, had the same beliefs, and immediately when you arrived, you were kind of everybody's friend, which obviously we know it's not how things work in the real world. So that was very artificial, but that's how things were. And actually, with moving so much, that having a congregation, having that community was a little bit of something stable for me, if you know what I mean. Because, otherwise, it was very chaotic.
So this brought you into your adolescence, and that stability was, like you said, it was comforting for you. At what point did you get baptized? How old were you?
So I grew up with a stepdad, and he left. That's another story. But he left. Him and my mom divorced when I was 11, and then an elder from a local congregation took over kind of a study, so he would study with me, and I got baptized at the age of 16. So I got baptized when I was 16. I did have a period of time where I was a little bit rebellious and, didn't really want to be JW. There was a lot of very conflicting emotions and feelings because my stepdad cheated on my mum with a special pioneer from our congregation. So, that was very confusing for me because I always grew up with this very holy vision of organization that, everyone is so amazing and kind and lovely and almost perfect. Um, and then this happened, and that was very, very confusing. And that's where I think that was probably one of the first um, points at which my waking up kind of unraveled. Do you know what I mean? Like it was one of the first things that happened that was very, very traumatic and made me realize that perhaps what my mom and everyone in the community and congregation is teaching me is maybe not entirely true. Um, so that's where it kind of started, and then me and my mom. We moved to another city, to a new congregation, and my mom was in quite a deep depression. Um, so again, that was quite tough. And again, I have to say, having the community there was actually a positive in that respect. Um, so growing up in this religion, obviously, there's a lot of massive negatives. But sometimes, in life, like like what I had, there are also positives, but they mainly just the community, the indoctrination, the mind control, constant surveillance, lack of worldly education, not being able to follow your dreams, constant shame, fear, now shunning, all that we are constantly exposed to growing up as JWs. And this has a massive impact on us as adults. So yes, there was a lot of problems, issues, trauma that came with growing up as a JW that I haven't actually fully realized until I left, until I started waking up. And when I started to research and get educated about what it actually meant mentally to be raised in this way, and how it affected me and my personality and my mental health in as an adult. I remember it all started with this book I've read, and I would like to recommend to people if they would like to read it. It was written by Bonnie Zeman, and it's called Exiting the JW Cult, and it's called Healing Handbook. And Bonnie was a JW herself, and now she became a psychotherapist. And her book really opened up my eyes to what I was part of, and all the issues that my upbringing and growing up as a JW created for me. So it's a brilliant book to read for anyone who is thinking about leaving or just left.
So you mentioned that your situation with your stepdad started waking you up, and then what led to the real letting go? You said you did some research. If you can take us back to that time when your dad was cheating, like how old were you when the situation happened with your stepdad, and then you guys had to move?
So I was very young. I was 11 when that happened. Then when I was, then 3.5 years later, he came back into our life. And there's nothing really specific, or traumatic or anything really to report at that time. Then when I was 22, I got married and we moved to UK. And me and my husband, we pretty much from the start, as soon as we moved here, we were very busy in the congregation. We were very, I think, keeping members of JW, called so busy is intentional. Because with all the meetings, with all the preaching, with meetings 3 times a week, 2 hours each meeting, all the preaching, all the preparation, all the talks that you have to prepare, or all the studying and reading you're supposed to be doing, and it's just constant. And living here in UK and English, we were also part of a translation team. So that means that whenever there was convention, there would be English speakers, and me and my husband and other translators, we would translate the talks into Polish. There was lots of letters, lots of other things that constantly needed to be translated. So that took a lot of our time. We were both members of building committees, so building kingdom halls. that took a lot of our time, and you know, yeah, just took us away from our lives really. My husband became ministerial servant very quickly. I was pioneering, auxiliary pioneering, and then my husband became an elder, and that's where things really started to unravel for us both, because he then had access to kind of behind the scenes, if you like, you know. He would have to take part in like loads of different meetings, judicial committees that he felt very, very uncomfortable about, and I would often see the effects of that. So he would come home and he would have severe headaches, and he would feel very, very guilty for having to judge someone where he felt he wasn't in any position to do that to another person. And we started slowly having doubts. You know, I was supposed to be this very happy eldest wife and this example in our community, in our congregation, and I was slowly like declining in my faith, in my just my me as a person, because he was constantly away from home. During that time, my daughter came into the world. I was pregnant, giving birth to my daughter, and I was very kind of frowned upon that I didn't straight away go to meetings because I just didn't feel able to. And I was eldest wife, so I should be there. And then when I came to the meetings, I started to see Kingdom Halls in a very different light, because you know, I came to the meeting and there was really nowhere for mother and a child to go and be comfortable. And the meetings were often very late. Like here in UK, the meetings, I think they started 7:30 in the evening, and as you know, they would go on for like 2 hours, so it would finish very late. And there's me with this little baby, you know, in this very bright lights, you know, very loud, you know, songs and talks, and all these people around. And it was very, it was very, very hard and very eye-opening. It was like an eye-opener for me, that I started to think, how is this building and this whole meeting and this whole place loving environment for families and for young moms, you know? Because if my daughter was and she still is very, very lively and very full of life. She was never ever quiet or calm. You know, she wasn't one of those children that she would just stay in her you know, in her pram or wherever she was, and just be quiet and listen to the talks. She wasn't. She was always very lively and kicking and screaming and shouting and craving a lot of attention. So I would often have, you know, heads turning from the front of the hall when she wasn't quiet enough. And, you know, little things like that slowly started to really grow, and it made me think, you know, that I don't feel welcome there. I don't feel supported, you know, as a young mom. And I did have slightly difficult time after having my daughter, because it took us a very long time to have her. And then when I had her, mentally, I didn't feel very well. So coming into this environment was very difficult for me. And then as my daughter was growing up, I started to, obviously I loved her I still love her, obviously, loads and loads. And I started looking at her and thinking, what kind of future do I want for her? Do I want her to be a pioneer? Do I want her to grow up in this very, male-led, kind of woman should be humble and listen to, the guy, the husband, take the lead, take his lead, and all that. And my answer to all those questions were no. I don't want that life for her. And then I started thinking in terms of her education. I always thought I want her to be well educated. I want her to get great job, be strong, be independent, things like that. And so my mind started to, you know, uh, I started to think about those things a lot. And then one day, when my daughter was about 2.5, 3, she came back from nursery, and she said to me, she's very intelligent, and she said to me, "Mommy, all my friends have cake when they have birthdays, and why don't I? Why can't I have cake? What's wrong with me?" She said, "What's wrong with me?" And that question, it was like a ton of bricks. Like it was, I couldn't believe what she said, because me going through therapy myself, I kind of felt how heavy that question was, and what growing up as JW, even from that very, very small age, did to her. She thought something was wrong with her. And immediately, because she didn't have cake like everybody else, and immediately all those emotions and feelings from when I was growing up, and I felt like that a lot of the time, that I was, odd, different, something's wrong with me, I didn't deserve certain things, like other kids did. That was massive for me as her mum, and massive wake up call, and I couldn't ignore it. And we started talking a little bit more kind of openly with my husband about my feelings and how I felt about my daughter growing up, and what sort of woman I wanted her to become, and whether growing up in JW community was the right place for that. And even though he was trying to, defend the organization and trying to, steer me away from that kind of, thinking, eventually he also admitted, like, we started talking about the blood issue, for example, and he said to me one day, if Abigail, my daughter, needed blood, our daughter needed blood for the reason, if there was a situation where she needed blood, we would both agree to that. So we both agree. He said, I would give her blood, there's no question. And he was an elder at that time. And I said, me too. And that's where we started to be a little bit more open with each other about our true feelings, about different doctrines, about different teachings that we didn't agree with. I couldn't also connect with, this loving father that we were supposed to, Jehovah is this loving father, because I didn't grow up with one. And also, to me, the God that we were learning about in meetings was actually quite cruel. And And I didn't find him to be a loving father. I found him to be quite cruel and punishing. And so there was a lot of things and doctrines that didn't sit right, I didn't agree with in my heart, But obviously outside, you could never ever express any of those feelings because you would get in trouble, or you wouldn't be spiritually strong enough or something like that. So yeah.
And at this point, what year is it that you're waking up? How old is your daughter? And it sounds to me like things are aligned, like your husband is in the same space as you
Yeah.
are, conflicts. So that time for you, what year was that? How long ago was that?
So we've been out for about 3.5 years. So at that time where we decided to leave, my daughter was about 4. She was about 4, just turning 4. So she remembers a lot of things. We were very, as I said, very busy in the congregation and very popular, you could say. We had loads of friends. We were constantly busy, and so did she. So for all of us, leaving was very difficult in that respect because obviously, because we were so visible, we couldn't just quietly disappear. The news spread very quickly that we are out, that we are apostates. People started shunning us, people who I would never think would. Obviously, often when you leave the organization, you then hear that all the friendships you had in the organization were conditional anywhere. But somehow, maybe in my native, I was maybe naive enough to think that perhaps that will not happen to that extent when we leave, because of how close we were to people, how much we were helping people, how much we were involved in the community, and doing so much to the point where we didn't really have our own life. It was all about the organization. But no, as soon as we left, very, very quickly, people started shunning us, and shunning very hard, like deleting us of everything, of the WhatsApp, the social media, everything. So that really, really wasn't easy. But luckily, there's lots of support for people like us. We know that there's lots of groups for XJWs that you can find, people who went through similar situation. I didn't know that at the time of leaving. So I was very, very good JW in terms of, I never looked at any apostate materials. I never looked at any of this stuff. So I really wasn't aware that there are people like us. So that was a revelation when we left and actually learned that there's a lot of support and a lot of people who left and who feel like they lost the community and all the friends. And so at the beginning, when we left, and I've learned that those places exist, those groups exist, those meetups exist, that was amazing for me. And at the beginning, I did use a lot of those groups. I went to meetups. I've met some lovely people who also left the organization and became good friends. So it's a very traumatic and difficult process. to leave. And I'm not gonna, sugarcoat and say that it's all fantastic all the time, and you have this freedom, and yes, you do, but that comes also with a lot of grieving and a lot of sadness and a lot of difficult emotions. But knowing that there are people out there who are basically in the same boat and that support is there, it was very important to me at the beginning.
I think it's important to find that community forever. I mean, I've been out for 11 and a half years, and being with other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are also in the same kind of mentality as me has helped me tremendously. And now that I'm doing interviews, it just hits a certain spot in my soul, because I was in that boat for such a long time of being a Jehovah's Witness. And I tell other people, I tell my husband, it's like we have the same culture. Our background is the same. It's as if we were all born and raised on one island, and we all kind of speak the same language. We understand each other like nobody else understands us.
Yeah.
Special bond immediately. Like if we thought we connected before as Jehovah's Witnesses, this is like next level connection as ex Jehovah's Witnesses, because we're all in that same world. And there's a lot of ex Jehovah's Witnesses that still harbor a lot of anger and resentment toward the witnesses. But then there's this other side of I'm just trying to find myself. I'm just trying to heal. I want to really let go of and just come back to the person that I was before the religion came into my life. So I think that the community, like you said, it's there. If you're searching for it, it's there. No matter if you want to stay angry or if you want to be in the place of healing and letting go of that resentment and anger, there's always somebody in a community there for you, no matter where in the world you live. And it's either online, like you said, they have meetups, which is also fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much. And as far as you and your husband and your daughter right now, it's been 3.5 years. How are you guys currently living? Have you found more friends that are not Jehovah's Witnesses? And what has building the community as an ex-Jehovah's Witness looked like for you and your 7-year-old daughter now? And husband, how's that been like for you?
So at the beginning, I kind of threw myself in, trying to find new friends and really enjoying this freedom of now being able to just socialize and do what I want and go to birthday parties. But then I realized that it's very difficult for me to connect to people because of my experience, and I felt that the people we were meeting, our meetings and the parties and the conversations, I found them quite, I don't know, shallow, perhaps a little bit. They weren't at all, and I don't want to sound like this, because they weren't at all. But because being in the organization, we're so used to, talking about deep stuff all the time, kind of like very meaningful stuff, and then it was difficult, that transition into just being able to talk about some silly stuff, and joyous stuff and light stuff, and not necessarily very deep, and just having fun and being silly. That was a massive learning curve for me, and I think I'm still I'm still learning. My daughter, oh, she's brilliant. She's very popular at school. She's very happy at school. She's invited to every single birthday party there is. So, sometimes we say she has better, social life than we both do. But I'm very lucky because I work as a wedding makeup, hair and makeup artist. So I meet a lot of people through my work, and I met a lot of lovely, people through my work. We have great neighbors that we became friendly with. We have obviously mums and parents at school that we opened up to more and made great friends there. Yeah, we're just trying to just be open a little bit more and just, you know, go out with people, talk to people. We also met some great friends in XJW community. So slowly, I feel like, you know, we're building that network around us again, you know, that circle of friends. And it's very much a journey, don't get me wrong. Like we still on that journey, and I'm hoping that at some point I will feel like, you know, I have those close connections and those close friendships. But I'm very lucky because I'm very grateful because I was able to meet some amazing women after I left the organization, and create some lovely friendships already, even though it hasn't been that long since we left. But I honestly think, and people might not agree with me, or people might have different opinion, but I think after going through something so traumatic and being exposed to all those things growing up as a GW, I don't think you can fully successfully overcome those things and heal properly without professional help. And that's the route I've taken. And that's the route that worked for me. I know that people have different ways, you know, that they find that healing. And I'm not saying this is the only way and the only right way, not at all. But that is something that worked for me. And through that work, I was able to open up and show initiative, which doesn't come naturally to me, and understand that, you know, the teachings of everybody's doomed and bad, and people are bad, and world is bad, and everybody's just there to get you, you know, and that I had to work very hard on changing that perspective on others, and once you're able to do that, then you do open up, and you can find lovely people around you and friendships, and it does take effort, but it's possible.
In the 3.5 years that you've been out, you seem to have really taken the initiative to get a life going for yourself. So I applaud you so much. You sound like you have a very, very lovely family. And I'm right there with you. People can be very superficial when it comes to conversations and friendships. But I feel like I've made people uncomfortable by trying to get really deep and personal, and I just kept on doing it. And I feel like finally 11.5 years out of the organization, I'm finally meeting those people that are okay with deeper and more meaningful conversations. Sometimes you have to meet people in different locations than you're used to. You have to step outside of your comfort zone in your little bubble to find people that you might connect with. And it, like you said, it takes time. It takes time to get real friends. So yeah, like I said, I'm so proud of you and your family, Gabi, really, really. And the fact that you've been able to do this with your husband and daughter speaks volumes of you guys. So I thank you again for sharing, for coming on my channel and sharing your story. Is there anything, oh, and another thing I wanted to also say is therapy or personal or professional help. I could not be with you on your side more, because I feel that is so, so, so important when it comes to this work, whether you're working with a religious trauma therapist or just a trauma informed therapist or a coach or a counselor. Somebody who is informed with religious trauma is really, really, really important. And there's so many people in this space that could help you work through that. And yeah, to get that kind of help is really, really helpful. Yes, thank you again for saying that. A lot of people on my channel have said that. I have gotten help from somebody, and now I help people, but I'm continuously working on myself too. And the healing journey is never ending. There's not an end point. It's not like one day the religious trauma is all of a sudden healed and everything is great. So I think it's really important for people to realize that this is just a slow journey. Don't just pace yourself. There's no end goal here, and enjoy the journey. And it sounds like to me, you have really taken the time to really slow yourself down and enjoy the journey while you're doing it. Is there anything you would like to add to this interview?
I would like to just say that whoever is thinking about leaving or is having doubts, please allow yourself to research, allow yourself to educate yourself on mind control organizations, on cults, on how they operate, because that was one of the very powerful tools that helped me to wake up. As soon as you realize that what you're being part of, then you can allow yourself to research more. So please research, please allow yourself to compare the teachings that you get from the organization, to compare those with biology, with archaeology, with geology, with with the science, and allow yourself to do that research. Also, just for those who have left or thinking about leaving, just please live your best life now, because we've given enough time and enough of ourselves to this organization, where we didn't live up as our true selves. So find yourself, and what you're really about, what you really enjoy, what you really love, and who you truly are, and live your best life to the fullest.
I love it, Gabi. Thank you again for this wonderful interview, and thank you for watching.